So Cabby and I are just talking and catching up after my trip to Australia and his quite stressful 2 or 3 weeks. Before we started recording, Cabby told me that he plans to close on 1375. Do you call it Louis Lane or Lewis Lane?
Louis Lane.
Lewis Lane or Louis Lane?
I call it Louis Lane, but it's probably Louis Lane. So
Probably Louis Lane. All right. But the plan is to close on it hopefully either by the end of February 2024 or the end of March. All right. So, and we talked about, is the industry, the real estate industry in recession? I think it is in both Canada and the United States. And I should add to that for the record, there are some exceptions. Like Florida and Texas seem to be doing very well on the real estate side, and British Columbia in Canada. But pretty much every other state and every other province, I think, is in a real estate recession. Even though the general economy is not in recession, I think real estate is. And just to make you further depressed and stressed out, real estate recessions tend to last 2 or 3 years. You know, a general economy will shrink if it does for 2 quarters, maybe 3 or 4, usually not much longer than that in North America. But real estate, when it goes into the dumpster, tends to stay there for 2 or 3 years.
oh,
Yeah, it's a long time. So we have to figure out how to survive as real estate entrepreneurs for a considerable period of time. The other aspect of course, of the real estate recession is that interest rates obviously have gone up. Financing has become harder to get. Investors have run for the hills. I mean, as an investor, Cabby, you could put your money into, some kind of lending institution and get 5% today, with very little stress or effort. So,
right.
so we're in a tougher situation. There's no doubt about it. Now, I have some suggestions on how to find some additional money for closing Louis Lane. But before we talk about that, I was going to suggest that you ask your realtor to ask the sellers for an extension until the end of March. Give you a little bit more time to raise the money. And to do that, you kind of, quote unquote, bribe them with their own money. And what I mean by that is you have a $10,000 deposit. You could say, look, I'll add another $2,500 to that, and I will make it non-refundable immediately. I'll sign a release that says it's non-refundable, so you get the $12,500 right away. It goes into your bank account as the seller, so you get some money right now. But you have to, obviously, before I sign that, you have to give me the extension to the end of March.
Okay.
Now you do have some leverage. And again, before we started recording this call, I was about to explain what kind of leverage you have as a buyer. As a buyer, once your money goes into a brokerage real estate trust account in Ontario, it cannot come out of that trust account until both buyer and seller sign off on that. So you could just, for no reason whatsoever, it's not really nice, but you could do it, say, I am not going to sign any release or termination of this deal. No, I'm not. And the brokerage cannot release that $10,000 to the seller without you agreeing. And you could just sit on that for a year or two. Now, they could sue you in small claims court, but what the hell? Why not get $12,500 right now instead of waiting 6 months, a year, 2 years? And going to small claims court. And when you go to small claims court, if you did that, Cabby, I'm not suggesting you would do that, but if you did do that, you would make up some kind of a story. It would have to be truthful. It can't be a lie, but it could be that they didn't disclose something, or they played dirty pool, or your realtor did something that was not it was a bit shabby, or their realtor did. So you can go to small claims court, and if you can think of something to say, you don't know, they might not get their deposit at all. You might get it back. So you do have leverage, and your realtor may not even know that. Some realtors know it and some don't. But you could say, look, you tell them, I'll bump up the deposit by $2,500. I'll make it non-refundable so they can get that cash in the next couple of days, but they've got to give me the extension to the end of March. If he says, oh, they'll never agree to that, you say, well, wait a second. You tell them that I'm not going to sign a mutual release and termination of this deal unless I'm persuaded that it's the right thing to do, which means you should give me the damn extension. You'll make $12,500 for a 45-day extension. That's pretty good, especially given the fact that we're in a real estate recession. They may not be able to sell this again in 6 weeks or even 6 months, right?
Right.
So there's a lot of reasons why your realtor should be able to tell the sellers or the seller's realtor, look, you should cooperate. Cabby is doing everything he can to raise the money to close. Give him the extra time. You're going to get the money. If he doesn't close by the end of March, you got the money anyway. Otherwise,
Right.
you're going to have a fight.
Okay, so let's assume they accept the
Right.
extension. What then is the way forward?
So you mentioned that you have about $800,000 in equity at 1594 Cyrville.
Right.
And I assume you have an appraisal on that.
Yes, it was Rebecca Simmons that did that. So
How much was it appraised at?
3 million.
At 3 million. And when was the appraisal done?
November, December last year. So it's pretty recent.
Yeah. So and what is the debt on it right now?
2.2 million.
2.2. I know you told me these numbers before, but that was
No, I understand.
for Australia.
No, I understand. I'm sure you have. I mean,
Well, I have 2,500 clients, and I don't want to get the numbers wrong. So
Yeah.
I do recognize the numbers when you tell me, but I just don't want to recall it from memory in case I got it screwed up. So,
Okay.
so you need, I think, about $160,000 to close on Louis Lane,
Right.
and you have a mortgage broker. What is his or her name?
His name is Lawrence. I have to find his second name. But yes, I have a mortgage broker.
Okay, Lawrence. Is Lawrence a good mortgage broker in your opinion?
He does okay.
Yeah, because most of the mortgage brokers that I work with, and I don't work with very many, but most of them are pretty resourceful. And you should be able, in my opinion, to get a second mortgage on Cyrville for probably, well, hang on a second. I don't want to guess. Give me 1 second here. So 2.2 million divided by 3. So you've got about 73% loan to value right now.
Right.
Okay. And we probably can go to about 85% times 0.85. So you could probably go to about 2.55 million. So you could probably get a $350,000 second mortgage. It's going to be ridiculously expensive. It's going to be 11, 12%, maybe 15%. I don't know, but it's
Okay.
expensive. But you could probably get a $350,000 second mortgage at 11 or 12% with some fees.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds reasonable. Again, it's cost of doing business, right? So
yeah, well, look, for most real estate entrepreneurs, in fact, for most business entrepreneurs, for most entrepreneurs, it isn't really the cost of financing that's key. Obviously, 7 or 8% is a hell of a lot better than 12%, but it's the availability of financing that matters more. Because if we're right, and 1375 Louis Lane can be like an amazing project for you, and you could make a couple of $1 million, whether you pay 8% or 12% won't matter.
Right.
You with me on that?
Yeah, I'm with you.
But it's also a way to get into trouble because, if you can't maintain the cash flow or you can't roll over project after project, then the engine tends to seize up. So there's risk here for sure.
Okay.
But what you have to do is you should talk to Lawrence today, if you feel comfortable with this idea, and say, look, I need a $350,000 second mortgage, and I need it RFN, right friggin' now. RFN stands for right friggin' now. All right. And see if he can get it done in 2 weeks. I don't think so, but I think he could probably do it in 4 weeks. So, maybe at the middle of March, you could close this thing.
So I've already spoken to Lawrence about that. And what he was saying was that the maximum that he would be able to get on this property was about 65 to 70% loan to value. So I guess my question then to you is, do you have a mortgage broker that would be able to take this property, the Cyrville property, and get me 85%? So when it comes to, let's talk about second mortgages. When it comes to second mortgages, I spoke to someone that mentioned that RRSPs, you could get up to 95% loan to value, right? Now you said 85%. So obviously, like, there seems to be some leverage as to what you can get. I don't have those contacts, but directly I'm going to ask, do you have,
Yeah, there's two groups that I use personally. Okay.
Okay.
Sean McCormick is one, and he is a mortgage broker. He's in his 50s, so he's not as old as me, but he's not young anymore either. So Sean McCormick, I'll introduce you.
I actually have spoken to him.
Oh, you have? How did that go?
I'm trying to, it's been a while. Sean McCormick. It didn't really work out. So I'm going to read out his email to you.
Okay, yeah, please. Well, just forward it to me by email. I got my email open anyway.
Okay, I'll forward it to you.
Yeah.
So Aaron had introduced me to Sean.
Okay.
So, we had that conversation with him. I just forwarded it to you.
All right, I'll just see if I can get it. Hang on. Yeah. So yeah, I see it. So he was thinking an equity partner, right?
Yeah.
Oh, this is a different one though. This was a 2552 Granville.
No, if you scroll down below,
yeah.
there's a previous mail trail. So he had mentioned 65 to 70% value, and then was asking if I had equity in any other property, any of my other properties.
Right.
Didn't really have a lot more.
Yeah, I see it here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm reading it now. Have you got the appraisal on Cyrville? Can you send that to me as well?
Sure. Just give me 1 second. Just sent it.
I'm waiting for it to come through here.
Do you have any contacts here on the Quebec side?
I do, but that's a little bit tougher because it's a different legal system in Quebec, and this property's in Ontario.
Yeah,
it's a little bit more difficult, like to go across the border. I mean, Quebec has its own nation, you know that, right?
Right, true.
I mean, just ask most Quebecers, they'll tell you that. All right, let's have a look at this appraisal. Oh, this was done by Mike Simon, I guess, and Rebecca.
Yes.
Yeah, I like those guys. Yeah, we talked about them before. All right.
Yeah.
So I really like this property on Cyrville. Be nice if we had some interim income. Did you rent the house?
The house is rented right now to a couple of bums. I could probably do better, but it's bringing in about $2,000 thereabout.
Yeah, I think you told me that too.
Yeah.
All right. So I see it now, 3 million, and it's got 2.2 million. So with RRSP lending, you can go to as high as 90 or 95% loan to value. You can.
Okay.
And I wonder, if you're okay with it, I'm going to email Sean again, just about 1594 Cyrville. And he has arranged a couple of RRSP mortgages for me that have really helped me over the last year and a half as credit conditions got tighter. I'm a developer too.
Right.
So I think I have gone to, 90 or 90, maybe even 95%, but I think at least 90% on a couple of properties, just because I have a big project that has been sucking all my money out of my jeans. So what I think, if I had your permission, I would go back to Sean again and say, look, here's the appraisal for 1594 Cyrville. Can you either find a second mortgage for 350 or an RRSP loan for 350? Because he just did one for me, closed actually yesterday, which was, I think, 375,000 on one of my properties, and it is an RRSP second mortgage.
Yeah, you have my permission. I would appreciate that.
Okay, so hang on a second. We'll try again, okay? Because he's very resourceful. I know other people who do the RRSP lending, but they're so conservative, it would take forever to get anywhere. Hang on a second. Forward. Sean. Can you see my screen okay?
Yeah, I can see your screen.
All right, just if I write anything down that you don't like, tell me to change it before I hit send. All right?
Sure, we'll do. Uh, so, Bruce, this statement, for the blanket security was something that him and I had already spoken about as well. And he was asking for equity, right? I don't have a lot of equity on my other properties, pretty much maxed out. So I don't know if that would help.
I took it out.
Okay.
All right. So Sean, I know you have talked to Cabby before, but is there any way you could find him either a $350,000 second mortgage on Cyrville or maybe an RRSP second. I attach a recent appraisal which shows the property is worth 3 million and there's an existing loan in first place of 2.2 million. With a 350K second, that would bring loan to value to 85%.
For the RRSPs that he does for you, what LTV would you typically go to?
Not sure I understood the question.
For the RRSPs, is it still going to be 85% loan to value or 90?
No, it could go as high as 90 or 95%.
What determines that, whether it's 90, 95?
Just the degree of risk, right? But
Okay.
you can do an RRSP second. I think that'll go up to 95%. I know that I've done some that have gone to 90%, just because I've been, like I said, I have one big project that's been sucking money out of my jeans.
Yeah.
I needed to leverage some of my property so I could keep funding it. Because we've talked about this, I think, before too. What is a half-built project worth?
Nothing.
Nothing. It probably has a negative value. So I had to finish it. So I have now completed it. In fact, it's up for sale as of yesterday, I guess.
The reason why I asked that
Mhm.
is, if, for instance, I was able to get up to 90, 95% loan to value,
Yep.
what terms are we looking at here typically?
So an RRSP second would be a little cheaper. I think you'd be at 10%.
Okay.
And the fees would be lower. With just a regular second mortgage, the fees will be, higher and the interest rates will be at least 2% more. So RRSPs, you can, I think even these days, you can probably get an RRSP mortgage at 10% with maybe 1 or 2% fees versus a private lender be 12, maybe even 15%. It could be 4% fees. I mean, it's very expensive money.
The reason why I asked that is I'm willing to, I mean, again, I don't know what the term for the RRSP would be. So let's assume my first mortgage is going to end in about 2.5 years, right? That's the 2.2 million. So I don't know if the RRSP would be able to go that long. But one of the things I'm willing to do is to pay upfront the first year interest rate. I'm sorry, the interest.
Yep.
While I then use the IRR strategy to regenerate revenue on the property. That way, at least they're getting interest upfront, and then second.
Yeah. So yeah, I just added in here 2.2 million. Term remaining is about 2.5 years. I'll put in PS if it would help. Gabby is thinking of paying 1 year interest up front. Does that make sense?
But that's if it's
I beg your pardon?
that's if the RRSP is like, that's a 95% loan to value. Otherwise, then if it's at 350, it doesn't really add, because I'm paying back everything as interest.
I'm gonna take it out. The reason I didn't want to put in 500,000 here, Cabby, is if you want to get this deal closed at 1375, I don't want to push the envelope too far.
Okay.
I mean, you need 160,000, probably after fees, you'll be left with, I don't know, 150,000. I'm just making up numbers. We'll worry about the next step later. I mean, if we can't get this done, I mean, you obviously you could walk away from the $10,000. You could just say, look, I can't close at the end of February, keep the 10,000.
Yeah.
But if you're not going to do that, then but at the end of March, it would be nice to be able to close that deal.
Okay. No, I hear you.
Before I send that, let's go back to, I want to go back to the map here. So again, you're going to have to help me remember all this stuff. Sure. But this is 1375 right here.
Correct.
All right. This is on Geo Ottawa. Do you know Geo Ottawa?
Yes, I do very well.
I think you do. And you can see the zoning here is R2N, which is a good zoning, I think. I understand your development plan. It's to, well, it was to build 3 sixplexes on here.
Correct.
And would each sixplex be on its own lot?
Yes, so a severance would first be done to
Right.
sever this into 3. Then we'll build front to back semis on each lot with 2 ADUs each.
So this is Google Maps now, okay?
Okay.
So you have about 117 meters, sorry, 117 feet of frontage here. That's approximately. Does that
Yeah.
sound right?
Yes.
And I've done it so many severances, but I can't remember all the rules. Can you get severances in the R2N zone, which would be about 40 feet each?
30 feet. And I think there's an example. If you go back to GA Ottawa,
Yeah,
there was a similar lot. There was
over here, I guess.
yes.
Yeah, you can see there, those lots are about, they look like about 30 or 40 feet, right?
Yes, 30, 40 feet.
All right, so that looks good. All right. So I'm just going to take a picture of this. And hang on a second here. I'll go to the other screen. You know, the biggest problem about coming back from Australia, Gabby, was the 15-hour time difference. It was horrible. You know, I ended up you know, I ended up, 3 o'clock in the morning wide awake. It was horrible.
Bob, I mean, have you acclimatized now with
Oh
the
yeah,
new?
I'm fine now, but just literally in the last couple of days. I'll show you what I'm gonna do, because this is really gonna be crucial. So this is Louis Lane. Okay. There, I got a nice picture of you now. I'm sorry about the stress. Are you able to cope with the stress?
Yeah. Again, shape it like challenges know what doing. So
Yeah, I had one of my clients commit suicide over Christmas.
oh really?
Yeah, and he was about your age, and it really upset me.
Nah, that's not me.
It was awful. And I mean, as your coach and hopefully as a friend as well, if there's anything that, if you're ever really down in the dumps or something like that, you should reach out to me, because you know that, I mean, life is full of ups and downs. I don't care who you are. Even if, I bet you even Elon Musk has some down days, right?
True.
I'll bet he does. So they pass, right? And I just wouldn't want young people to, not think about maybe the future is going to look a lot better. All right, so let's go back to this. I mean it though. If you're ever down in the dumps, call me, okay, or email me and we'll talk.
Sure will do.
Okay, 1375 Lewis Lane. There. Oops, Ariel. 2024 February. And today's the 13th. Tomorrow's Valentine's Day. All right. So what So what I think we're talking about is, I'll do this in yellow, make it kind of, yeah, that's fine. So this is approximately the site here, right?
Right.
We'll just do this. And you'll see why this is important in a second. All right. So we can do that. Now let's go to red. And we're talking about basically three lots, right?
Correct.
More or less like that. Okay. That doesn't look right. Okay, we'll see. I'll try again. Gotta remember, I'm an engineer. This is the best I can do. All right. That looks about right. Whatever. Okay. And better save it. All right. Now, tell me again, what you're going to have, like,
So the front to back semis.
yes.
Right now,
It's six. Oh, you mean two here, and two here?
yes.
Ah, okay, all right.
So,
So,
but each one would then have two ADUs based on Bill 23.
yeah, very cool. Very cool. All right, so let's just see. So see if I get it right. So you're basically talking, I mean, this is just a concept, right?
Right.
So you're talking about sort of, right? You're gonna have one unit here, one unit here,
Yes.
and sort of a lower level apartment in each one?
Yes. So each of these orange envelopes is going to have two ADUs, right? Now, based on Bill 23, if I understand this correct, um, they can now be in the same envelope, right? Instead of it being being like a coach house. So
Right.
each of the oranges would now have three.
Really understand. All right, so let me see if I've got it right. I just want to make sure I've got it right. All right, so this would be a 3 bedroom semi
Yes, pretty much.
with a lower level.
Yes, and then a basement unit.
Okay, so this is, I'll just write it down here. This is a 3 bed, shoot, bedroom semi, back to back with lower level 2 bedroom apartment. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So 3 bedroom semi, back to back with lower level 2 bedroom apartment. All right. And so that would be the same here, correct?
Correct.
That's great. Oh, okay. So I'm just going to save this again. So the yield equals 2, 4, 6 semis and 6 lower level apartments, correct?
Yes.
Total. Six semis and 6 lower level. That's the total yield on 3 lots to be severed. Is that correct?
Um,
You'll have 1, 2, 3. If you do one severance here, you end up with 3 lots, right?
right.
So you sever this piece off and you end up with 3 lots.
3 lots, correct.
Okay, got it.
So
Okay.
I just showed, I'm sending to you a preliminary, this was not for one of my other properties. But for that particular property, I can only sever into 2 lots. That meets the requirement for front to back semis.
Yeah.
So on J Ottawa, you need a minimum width of frontage of 10 meters for a front to back semis, and you need a minimum area of 300 square meters.
Oh, you'll be fine then.
Yeah, I'll be fine. So if I divide this into 3, I have 3 lots. But this particular one I sent to you, if you can open the email, the plan it can only sever into 2, but it kind of shows you the concept that
Yeah. Let's have a look at this.
Oh,
Okay, so you've got two means of ingress and egress here?
no, so you have, so again, once you sever the lot into two,
Yeah.
right, then you have each one having a front to back semi. So that is the 2550A, 2550B, and the
Yeah.
other one is 2528, 2550B.
Right.
Now, so 2550A is going to have two units under it, and that's why you have those entrances 1, 2, and 3. A
Mhm.
basement unit, and then like a ground floor unit, then you have one that is on top.
That's
Uh,
excellent. It's really well done, Cabby. And I think I understand how the doors are working too. So this is the door to the upper unit, and this is the,
yes.
I love that you did it so that they're 90 degrees from each other, so it doesn't look like a semi.
Yeah.
That's
So
really,
this one,
that's really good.
so that's how we get three units on one of those backlots, and then or rather 6 units on one severance.
This is really, really well done. Did you do this or do you have an architect who did this?
Yeah, I had an architect that did this.
Well, obviously the architect knows what he or she is doing.
Thanks.
That's really good. No, it's excellent. I really like it. Okay, so let's go back to the message to Sean. I think that's probably okay, right?
Yes.
All right, I'll send that to him now. Now let's go back to this guy here. Um, when you ask your realtor, to go back to them for an extension, provided you make maybe a little bit of a bump up on the on the deposit and make it non-refundable. There's obviously a house on this property right now.
Yes.
Is it occupied?
No.
So you're going to get vacant possession on closing.
Yes.
And what was your plan for that house after you close?
Something similar to what I'm doing on some of my other properties. I'm going to rent out the rooms. I think it's about 4 bedrooms to
Nice.
students, something like that to generate revenue.
Right. Okay, so let's go back over here to the other screen. Yeah, let's have a look at this. So this is the house here.
Yes.
It looks quite nice from the outside anyway.
Yeah. I'll send you pictures that I have because I had an appraisal done as well. The inside is not bad, maybe needs a little bit of touch up, but it's rentable.
Yeah. And you have 4 bedrooms?
Yes, 4 bedrooms.
And I guess the plan is to rent them to, I don't know, students maybe?
Yeah,
Uh,
at least for it to cover the mortgage.
yeah, of course. I wonder if you have enough distance here. Yeah. I'm wondering if you could, even when the house is occupied, whether you could, sever off this piece. I mean, you might have to demolish the garage, but garage probably isn't worth much anyway.
Yeah.
So that lot that I just sketched out here, Gabby, is about, oh, it's pretty big. It's 4,700 square feet. It's probably not that big, but it's probably over 4,000 square feet, right?
Yep.
So one of the things you might consider doing is I'm not saying you should do it, but I'm just asking, okay?
Yeah, you're giving a recommendation.
Would sever this lot off and sell it to a builder. Let him or her do whatever they want with it.
What would be the advantage in that though?
Well, what are you paying for this thing? Total.
735, and that's one of the reasons why it's pretty cheap.
How much are you paying?
735, and I can build 18 units on it.
Yeah, it's fantastic. $735,000. All right, better get that. Give me a second here. All right, and so the purchase price equals $735.
Yes.
That's good. All right. We got. I'll just grab this. The reason I ask you whether or not that might make sense is a single lot that's 4,000 square feet or thereabouts is probably going to sell these days for, I don't know, 450 maybe. There's some lots in my area, like where I live in Ottawa, it's in the West End. In the West End where I live, there are some vacant lots. This is an old subdivision, but there's some vacant lots because we had a tornado come through in 2018 and destroyed 41 buildings. And there's some lots, and they're selling for $600,000 to $650,000 each. So if you sold one for 450 and developed two, I'm not saying you would do that, but you might consider doing that.
Yeah, I mean, it's an option that I'll take,
All right. This is, and I'm going to grab this picture as well. And were they right across the street?
It was on Geo Ottawa.
Yeah. Here it is here. So they've divided up the lots.
Right.
Is it possible that they haven't developed them yet, or what? Oh, maybe these are semis. I don't know.
I don't know as well. I only looked at Geo Ottawa.
So I'm just going to grab this and grab that as a picture. So go back to your sheet here. I'll make that a little smaller. And I'll put here, maybe sever off one lot and sell it for. The reason I bring that up now, the reason I bring it up now is it might be interesting when your realtor's talking to them, if you do go ahead with this. I put this in a lot of my agreements where during the conditional period, I'm allowed to apply for a severance. So this might be an overreach though. If you were, I can do severances in Ottawa anywhere from, the shortest I've ever done was 2 months, but more likely 3 or 4 months. So, who's your realtor on this?
Christo.
Oh yeah, Christo. Yeah, he knows this stuff inside out. So, one of the things you are allowed to do, if you have permission from the sellers, and if they gave you the extension and they allowed you to apply for severances for development purposes and marketing, then Christo, once you had that permission, could actually literally put it on MLS in a few days and see if there's anybody who wants that severed lot for 450,000. Because if you found somebody, or Christo found somebody who wanted it for, you say 445 or something like that, that's going to help you in a lot of ways, I think.
Yeah, I see the point.
All right. So when Christo asks for the extension, maybe he also asks for the right to do some planning work, severance work, and marketing. Those,
No.
if you get permission from the seller, you can do it right away. You can apply for the severance, which isn't expensive. And you can also put it on MLS for sale, subject to severance.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Okay. So I really like the plan that you have for this property, and I think it is probably worthwhile closing. You're basically getting 3 lots for $735, which means about 200 and something $1,000 for each lot.
Yeah.
On each lot, you're getting 2 back-to-back semis and 2 ADUs.
Yeah.
That's good. Now, is the plan to flip this or to develop it yourself?
But I want to develop it, which kind of, is a segue into construction financing in today's era.
Yeah.
So I know that one of the things that you teach is, how to use creative ways to build up equity in properties. For this property in the interim, actually for the other properties I have 2 other R2N zone properties like this, but those ones can only take 2 back, like 12 units max. Now, one of the things I was thinking of doing for those properties to, again, create some liquidity was, remember we talked about the not shared guys that, they had like the whole sheds, 160 square feet, you don't need permits, put them at the back of this and then create like a 3rd unit, right? So ultimately I can have like a 3-plex, right? And then when I run my numbers, maybe I'm generating about 72,000 gross revenue, right, from the property based on that. So if you could go to Ottawa as an example, I'm putting the address 2552 Gravelle, Crescent.
Okay, I'll do that in a second. And one more time. And I'm on Ottawa now, but I am going to take a picture of this because I think it's really important. I know you've said it before, but it's really important to recognize that this gives you a precedent. These 1370 and 1374 are the precedent for the severances. Do you know when those were done?
No, I don't. I haven't dug into that yet.
Do you have a planner here in Ottawa yet?
Nobody concrete. I've spoken to a couple of people, but I'm not really enjoying working with them.
Yeah, there's a lot of really terrible planners in Ottawa.
I know.
Okay, hang on. So I'm going to stop sharing this screen. Just want to make sure I got it right. Okay, so these are, you think 30-foot lots or 40-foot?
The 1370 and 1374.
Yeah.
I'm not certain. I haven't looked into them.
Not to worry. Precedents for severance, but you think 30-foot lots are permitted?
Yes, 30-foot lots stuff.
R2N, right?
Yeah.
That's absolutely okay. Hopefully I spelled precedents right. I'll put that in your document and I'm going to send that to you in a minute. And then we'll do the other one thing. Okay, so I think that's it for
Louis Lane.
yeah, for Louis. Okay. I'm gonna send this back to you. You should get that in a minute by email, so you have the same document I have.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna go back to Geo Ottawa. And where are we going this time?
So 2552 Gravelle Crescent. Two five five two.
Okay, so it's this guy here.
Yes. No, not that one, the other one.
No, where is it?
Corner lot. The corner lot.
Oh yeah, okay. And that is what you sent me, the PDF that you sent me.
Exactly. Yes.
All right, I got it. Wow.
So, so for this lot, right, the strategy you set for Lewis Lane as well could work, right? Sever and sell off, or
that would be a huge friggin' deal. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna grab this address, hang on. We should just stop there. That's a really solid idea. Let's just go to Google for a moment. Yeah, see, in this location here, I think you're going to get, oh my goodness, yeah, you're going to get, I think you might end up with, $500,000 for a lot here. Maybe a little bit more. I mean, Christo will know, he can, he's a good realtor, he'll figure that out, but I think this would be an awesome lot to create right here.
yeah. So I'm thinking of doing a severance and then probably going as well as building 12 units, that's the highest and best use, right?
Yeah,
Based on the PDF I sent to you. But
yeah, but sorry to interrupt you, Cabby, but your number one priority is not to go broke.
True.
So your number one priority is generating cash flow right now, in my opinion.
Yeah.
As your coach and hopefully as your friend. So if you could, do a couple of severances, one on Louis Lane and one here on Gravelle, and sell this one for $550 and the other one for $450. Last time I checked, those two numbers make $1 million.
Yeah.
That probably won't hurt you. Like that's one of the ways that most of my developers, even big developers, these days, are de-risking their projects. Like I've got one developer who bought a 36-acre parcel for development through me as a realtor, actually.
Yeah.
I don't do much realtor work anymore, but I do some. And they paid over $10 million for it. And right away, we severed off a couple of blocks, smaller blocks, and sold them. One we sold for $3.5 million, the other closer to $4 million. So, that's quite a bit. And so they ended up with the bulk of the land at a much, much reduced price per acre. So that was good.
Okay.
So even large developers who have more money than you and I do, at least more money than I do, and probably you as well, they're still de-risking their projects by bringing in other people, right? Who you like and trust, who will develop something that's compatible, hopefully, with what you want, right?
Right.
And you've got Christo in your corner, and you like and trust him, right?
True.
There you go. So I really like the idea of a severance here.
Okay, so that's one option, and obviously I'm going to probably go with that. But the other option I was thinking about, Bruce, was again converting this into a triplex in the interim by adding a third unit, an ADU, right? So if the city wants to give us households, we just go with 160 square feet. 60 square feet shed and put it on the property. Do you think that that's an alternative in terms of strategy for this lot in this environment practically?
So I'll show you one of the ones that I'm working on right now. It's kind of pathetic, but it's, you know, like, given the scope of what's going on today, right? It's harder than you might think. What's the zoning on Gravelle, by the way?
R to N as well.
It is R2N. I just didn't, oh, there it is. Yeah, okay. So let me just go back here to this screen and we'll just fool around with it, and then we'll go through the development options. All right. So it is R2N,
Yeah.
right? And I'll just save this again in your file. You notice I give all of my files, you know, good names,
Yeah.
so I can find them again on my computer. Like, I can search for everything, right?
That's something I'm probably going to steal from you.
I think you should, because, you know, the computer's the other half of my brain. You know, with just over 2,500 clients that I've coached in 11 years, you know, people often will call me because my real job description, I probably told you this before, is file clerk, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, their lawyers will call me, their accountants will call me, they will call me, their surveyors, their planners will say, hey, do you have a copy of? And what the hell do I know? I've got several million files, right? But I can find them, right? I've got a search tool that finds pretty much anything on my computer.
Okay.
All right. So what we're talking about is HABU here. So what we could talk about is, I think what you're saying is that you would consider putting like a unit there or something like that.
Exactly. Just because there's that space there, right?
Yeah. So or alternatively, we could, you know, maybe do a severance, right?
Yes.
All right. So I'll just write that down. I'll just put here ADU question mark or severance. All right. So the utility of selling this for $550,000 as a severed lot, I think, is much higher than putting an ADU on here.
Okay.
And you know, you want to be, and you are a developer, and you want to build stuff. But every time you build stuff, just ask Aaron Markle, it costs money. And it always costs more money. It takes more time than you think, right?
Yes.
So doing a severance and asking Christo to sell that thing off for you for 550,000. I mean, you have to ask him what he thinks the market will bear. But I, you know, like I said, in my neighborhood, they're getting 600 to 650 for a lot. It's ridiculous, but that's what they're getting.
But I guess my major concern is because I mean I'm also pretty much active. I'm looking at like properties on the market, right? To your point earlier, we're in a recession. I don't know that there are a lot of people that are buying, you know, lots. So there's another lot on Gazette. I think it's 1353. That lot has been on the market for close to a year. You know, I tried to buy it as well myself. He was asking for about 450, you know, so that's I guess one of my major, you know.
I understand. And you know what we should do is we should talk to Christo, let him do some research for us and see if there is any movement. I mean, you know, you got to remember too that you have one advantage, and that is the spring market starts in 2 days, right? It does. Most people think that the spring market in Ottawa, the spring market starts in, you know, March. It does not. As soon as the sun gets a little bit higher in the sky, which is about the middle of February, Ottawa and Montreal as markets, they tend to wake up. So let's say you and I were in the window washing business. We would be doing our door-to-door sales and our dropping off our flyers now, not in March, it's certainly not in April. I mean, you can't do any window washing in Montreal or Ottawa in February or March. It's just too cold and the water will freeze. Marketing starts generally February 15th. And just to prove my point, this nice young man came to the door last week, so even before the 15th of February, selling window washing in my neighborhood, you know? So real estate is the same. So if you were going to put these lots up, I mean, you own Gravelle right now, right?
Yes, I do.
So you could call Christo this afternoon. You say, Christo, let's talk about Louis Lane, but let's also talk about Gravelle. And what I do is I do what the North Koreans do and the North Vietnamese did, and that is I talk and fight. I mean, that's what the North Koreans do. And that's what the North Vietnamese did to the Americans, right? They would talk in Paris about peace, and then they would fight like hell. Was their strategy. And they eventually wore the Americans down and they kicked them out of Vietnam. And the North Koreans are, you know, they're tough hombres there. They're tough people. So what I mean by that is I often do things in parallel, which who knows which one's going to come through. Right?
True.
Okay. So, you know, that's what I would, if that was my property, I would ask Christo to put it on the market by the end of the week, you know, because the 15th is coming in 2 days.
Yeah. Okay.
And you know, put it, I mean, he has to do the research, but I would put it on the market at a high price. I mean, you can always lower it. But if somebody really that's a beautiful lot. It's a corner lot, and I think that's fairly big. Anyway, let me just grab this, finish this off. Hang on. I'm glad you said what you did about stealing some ideas from me, because that's one of the things that differentiates old people from young people isn't necessarily how many times they've gone around the sun. It's whether they're able to learn new things. And it doesn't matter whether you're 30 or 40 or you're 80, right? I think what keeps
me, I want to steal a lot from you. Actually, I have an update for you. The last time we spoke, remember I told you I was doing the micro suites?
Yeah.
And I was waiting for the permits.
Yeah.
Finally got the permits approved, you know. So now I can build my 5 micro suites legally.
No way.
Yes, right.
Okay, all right. So let's just work on this for another second. That's wonderful. I'm so pleased to hear that. So we'll go back in here. So this is 2552 Gravelle. The question is add an ADU. Oh.
Talking fight.
All right.
Yeah.
So I would ask Christo to put the corner lot up for sale on MLS, subject to severance. Right? You're allowed to do that. You know, that's, I mean, it's just a no-brainer. Like if somebody comes along and says, hey, I'll buy it for $500,000, you know, taking possession probably June or July of this year. That wouldn't be the worst thing that ever happened to you.
No, it wouldn't.
Okay, all right. We've all had ups and downs in our lives, as we talked about earlier. Okay, so I think that is a good plan. And just talk to Christo this afternoon about, obviously, Louis Lane, but also about this. I think he'll be excited about that.
Okay. I'll definitely do that, right? Now, one of the reasons why I'm particular about the ADU strategy, right, is on the long term. So if you check on MLS, you find a lot of properties that are single family homes, right? You know, going for like maybe 500, depending on 500, 550, 600 range. Yep. Some of them are sitting on 30-foot, deep lots. I'm sorry, 100-foot deep lots, right? And, maybe we have like between 30 feet to 40 feet for frontage, right? Now, most of them have like basements, kind of like my property here on Gravelle, right? And similarly with Louis Lane. So one of the things I've noticed is, like, for instance, for the Gravelle property, I have 2 bedrooms on top.
Yep.
I have a living room, and then I have 2 bedrooms. I can have 2 bedrooms downstairs. I have 1 bedroom right now, but I can have another bedroom downstairs and a living room, and they have separate entrances. So wow. It's very easy, yes, to create a front, a top unit, a duplex, right, with separate entrances already.
Yeah.
Now, if I add the ADU, essentially I'm getting a triplex, right? From a revenue standpoint, I can rent a 2-bedroom for 2,200, 2,100 easily. A studio or a 1-bedroom for the ADU, maybe fetching another 1,800 or something like that, or 1,500 to be conservative. But the point is, you're getting closer to about $6,000 per month, which is a gross revenue of 72,000, right? So in my own estimation, I think that if you're getting 72,000 gross revenue, you can get to a valuation of about $1 million or thereabout, as opposed to selling off. So if you have $1 million valuation at 80% loan to value, you're getting out 800,000. If you buy that same lot for 550 or 600, you're making about $200,000, and you still have about 200,000 equity, right? There's a lift there. The only question that I have is it practicable too? Does this market support it? So if I have the revenues coming in as a triplex, would somebody tell me there's no comparable because it's a unique offering? Or would somebody be willing to take the income approach to say, you're making this money, you can support the mortgage, yeah, we want to work with you?
Yeah, so the answer depends on the appraiser. One of my clients has a beautiful house on a rural lot, and he built a fantastic workshop for himself in the backyard. Okay. And at the present moment, he uses the house for himself and his family, and the workshop for his business. He went and the workshop it's fantastic. It's got an office, it's got workshop. I mean, it's big. It's 1,600 square foot workshop.
Wow.
It's big. So he wanted to get it reappraised and put some more financing on it. His first name is Alex. And the appraiser showed up, and I get a call from Alex, kind of like a panic call. He said the appraiser showed up, and I told him that he was going to look at the house and the workshop. And he had to appraise them both. Well, he said, oh, no, I can only appraise the house. And so Alex said, what do I do? I said, if you want my advice, that's why you're calling, you fire him. Right now. You just fire him. You just say, thank you for coming. No, you're done. So he fired that guy. And he hired a second appraiser who came and said that he was prepared, it was a man, that he was prepared to look at both structures. And so the appraisal, I mean, that 1,600 square foot workshop was appraised at over $300,000. So it added quite a bit of value. Same thing for the ADUs. The good news is that appraisers are getting more familiar in Toronto and Ottawa and other cities across Canada, the United States, with ADUs. So Alex had this problem 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay.
And it's less of a problem now. But when you get it appraised, you have to actually, and certainly Alex will do that. He's a big real estate guy. He knows enough now to ask the appraiser, look, I've got the house, it has some micro suites in it, or it has a basement apartment in it, and it has an accessory dwelling unit in the back or on the side yard. I want to make sure that you're going to appraise it on an income basis. Some appraisers still are not comfortable doing that. They say, oh no, we just have to do comparables. Well, those people are no use to you, because every project that you and I do is different now, right?
Right.
So, you have to ask the appraiser, hopefully not when they're at the door, right? You fire them before they get there, right?
Yeah.
But you have to ask them that question.
So again, I mean, and that was one of the reasons why, for instance, I worked with like Rebecca Simmons, right, as an example. Now the other question then is one thing for you to get the appraisal.
Question though, I did have a spreadsheet I wanted to show you that
Okay.
might help, okay? All right, so I opened this up before we got going because I knew this question was going to come up. So this is a spreadsheet, believe it or not, that goes back to 2016. I don't know if you can see my screen okay?
Yeah, I can see.
And it goes back to, so it's 8 years ago. And this was a client of mine who bought a bungalow in Canada, which is the west end of Ottawa.
Right.
He's a very good developer, and he put in a beautiful 2 or 3 bedroom basement apartment. So this is the basement apartment, and he completely renovated the upstairs, and of course he put in a beautiful 2 bedroom or 3 bedroom apartment downstairs. It was on Abbey Hill Road. Now this is a long time ago. It would be much expensive today. He bought it for $310,000. He paid about $3,000 in land transfer tax. He paid a hell of a lot of legal fees. I don't know how it ended up $3,200, but that's what he paid. He put in 20% of equity himself, so he put in about 68 grand, and he got a mortgage. And look at the rate he got on it, 2.7%.
Wow.
You couldn't do that today. All right. So something I wanted to show you was, I think somebody said to you, one of your mortgage brokers said to you that you're not allowed, or CMHC does not permit you to get any value from your sweat equity.
Yes, that came up when I was looking at
So I just tell you, here's a workaround on that. Okay, here's something that you can do which is perfectly acceptable, at least in my experience. So it wasn't CMHC funding, but he had the same criticism from his mortgage broker that you got, that is that his time was not worth anything. He couldn't attribute it. So what he did was he had a separate company. He actually owns a roofing company, and Mike's roofing company provided project management and billed the project about $47,000 over the 6 months it took to do this project. 5 visits a week, 4.25 hours per visit. He charged him, for his time, he charged $85 an hour, and he ended up with a bill of $47,000 that was charged to the project. So he had himself over here as the real estate owner, and then he had his roofing company bill for project management for his time. Because if he's not managing this project, he has to hire somebody to manage it, right? So why not himself? So, and we didn't hide that from the appraiser. We didn't hide it from the lender. We told them that this is a bill that came from the roofing company for project management. And exactly, we made the same argument. If we hadn't paid Mike for his time to manage this project, we would have had to hire a project manager, and it would have been at least this amount, if not more, right?
right.
And it was accepted by all. But you do need a separate company. So I don't know if each of your projects is held in a corporation, maybe a numbered company.
Yes.
Yeah. So you probably have a company that could bill for your time.
But So I'll give a background because I send it in a text, right? I'll give a background as to where the issue came up. You kind of, to your point, you I think you've already touched on it a bit, but for the Cyrville property, if you remember, I can, based on the zoning, I can get 154 units.
Yeah.
So I was trying to see if it was possible to get financing, right? What construction financing looks like, what does 95% LTV mean, from CMHC, right? And, in the practical terms, what can I do? So obviously I saw there were a lot of stumbling blocks, right? Oh, well, the phrase in CMHC is the developer, right? And the developer actually means the builder from a CMHC perspective, right? So even though I'm hiring a builder that has experience, that has built 6 stories before, there's still considerable risk from CMHC's point of view for me because they don't know me, right? They know the builder, but then the builder could walk away from the project. So according to the broker, the builder would have to be part of the project, so have some equity.
One of the things you could do is you could offer, an ownership interest to Aaron Markle, who is a well-known developer, right?
Right.
You could say, look, Aaron, why don't I, if you're going to do some coaching for me, I'll give you 2% of the project for free, and he has, a good track record. He's done a lot of development work. He's done a lot of construction. I don't know how many projects he's built, but quite a few. So, you could rely on his CV. And if you don't like Aaron, I mean, obviously I think you do, but if you didn't like Aaron, there'd be other people that would probably help you in that regard. So you could hire a project manager, a construction manager, a development manager, somebody like Aaron and Markle, who could be all of those things, plus a partner and a coach, and his CV would add to your credibility.
Yeah, so that was, I mean, I actually, touted that idea, right? But again, and it's just one person or 2 people speaking from the same firm, right? They're saying, we do this every day. This is what CMHC is saying. Because you're building over 100 units, there are a lot of eyes that are looking at those documents. Yes. They want the builder to be part of the project because they want that comfort and assurance from a risk management perspective.
I don't see any reason why I mean, it doesn't have to be 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5%. It could be 30%. I mean, or it could be a very small amount. But some of the compensation for your coach, if Aaron was coaching you, or if he was a builder, some of the compensation could be in the form of equity, and therefore he would help you in that sense with your CMA. He would strengthen your CMAC application.
I'm not today, I'm going to come back because some of the figures have been quoted for equity, for people to offer is, I don't know, in my opinion, maybe a little bit more, 30-40%, just for, bringing their profiles.
I think people are just, trying to take advantage then.
I mean, and it's normal, right? They are trying to take advantage. My job is to make sure they don't take advantage.
One of the things I don't want to do, and I don't want you to do either, is I don't want you to hate everybody. I don't want you to distrust everybody. There are people for sure that will try and take advantage of you. They've tried it with me many times, but there's also lots of good people that you can, once you come to know them, that you can like and trust. And you only want to have people in your life that you like and trust. If somebody proves to be untrustworthy, Kabi, you want to exit them out of your life as fast as you can. If you have a business partner, a contractor, a sub-trade, a trade, anybody that you don't trust, you've got to find a way to get rid of them, because otherwise your life will be shit.
Right.
Right?
But yeah.
Let me finish on this spreadsheet, okay?
Okay.
All right. And so I think you can put a project management fee in, and it will be accepted by the appraiser. And if it's accepted by the appraiser, and the appraiser has been approved by CMHC, they'll probably approve it as well. So the rents back then were much lower than they are today, but it was $1,475 for the upper unit and $1,250 for the lower unit. It'd be much higher today. Total revenues were about $3,000 a month, be probably close to double that today. put in a vacancy rate, showing net revenue, net operating income, market cap rate. Cap rate back then was about 5.4%. The market cap rate back then was 5%. So I got a market value of 525 for it based on income. We did some comparables. The comparables came out lower at 498. So we had cost to complete, including his project management fee of 483. The market value was 525 based on income. The comparables ended up around 498. So when you average them, we just averaged them, it was arbitrary. We came out at 502. So one of the things that I do, and I want you to do it as well, before every appraisal, you do a spreadsheet like this, obviously with updated numbers, and you give it to the appraiser. And I give it to the appraiser and say, I don't want to influence you, but here's what I think the building is worth. And you know, I just wanted to provide you with some additional documentation. When I give an appraiser information, I give them the rent rolls. I give them all the renovations done, copies of all the contracts, a spreadsheet, which is my analysis of what I think it's worth. I'll just tell you the email I got. This is from Michael. He said, hey, Bruce, the appraisal came in for Abbey Hill at 503. Woo, holy smokes, laugh out loud, right? Woohoo. So this spreadsheet, you know, the appraisals for properties kind of like this in the area at that time were in the low 400s, and he got over 500,000. This spreadsheet helped.
I see what you mean.
And you know, and today I'll send you a copy of the spreadsheet. It's confidential, but I'll send it to you. It's an
I'd appreciate that.
8 years ago, and we've been doing it over and over again. The one thing I wanted to say though is today I wouldn't even bother with the comps, because I just wouldn't bother with them, because there's really very difficult to find exact comparables. It'd be different if it's just one bungalow against another bungalow and 6 of them have been sold in the last 6 months. You can use comparables for that. But if one bungalow out of those 6 has a basement apartment, or maybe those 3 micro suites that we talked about, and an ADU, how the hell are you going to use comparables? So today I wouldn't even bother with that. I would only have these 2, the cost to complete and the market value based on income. All right. So hang on a second. I'm going to send you that before I forget. But I appreciate it if you don't show this to anybody.
No.
It's just for you as an example.
Yeah. So appraisers, actually, let me finish.
Yeah, I apologize. I'm pathetic. I can only do one thing at a time.
Yeah. Me too.
Are you the same? My wife can
Yeah.
my wife can do 10 things at a time, but I can't.
I mean, if I want to do things properly, I can only do one thing at a time.
I'm the same. All right, sorry. It's on its way to you. Okay, so you'll have that as an example.
So the question that I had was, right, it's one thing for you to get appraisal. Again, one of the things I had was even if you get like an appraisal. So Karina is my coach as well from land development perspective, right? And she does like the whole flipping the paper strategy. So this is something that I find very interesting. If I get my site plan approval for the 1594 property, Cyrville property, right, and I get my valuation at, or actually, if I go ahead and I, you know, put the 160 square feet not shared sheds on my property, and I rent those out as workshops, you know, and I get you know, based on income that I'm getting from the property, I get, say, you know, evaluation of, say, let's say 7 million, right? And I sell it to a builder because that's what it's worth to me at the time, right? He's pretty much buying the whole business. Now, if he has to demolish the existing structures and put his 6-story building, right? That's his headache. If I sell it to a builder, apparently CMHC is going to look at that and say, oh, you bought it for 7 million, right? So the value of the land is 7 million. If I, however, on the other hand, decide to do a refinance, right, at say 7 million or thereabout, but then go to CMHC and say, now, you know what, 3 years down the line, I'm now thinking of building a 6-story structure. According to them, CMH is going to say, you bought the land for 2.7 million. We don't think that you moved, the needle has moved so much. So for me, they make a lot of sense. But then these are guys that say like they deal with CMH every day. And that because, it's kind of subjective on CMH's end, right? Or the lenders as well, that they're going to say throughout my valuation and tear apart the appraisal. So I guess my question is, how do I go out, how do I solve that constraint? Because ultimately I want to build, but I also want to put in the equity to build the value of the property up.
Well, one of the questions I think experts in CMHC funding is what role appraisals take in all of this. Like appraisers are considered, authorities on property value. Realtors can do comparative market analysis. You know that, right?
Right.
They're called CMAs, but they don't have the same weight that appraisals have. I mean, a CMA is something that Christo could do, or as a realtor, I can do it as well, or as a coach, I can do it. You can do it. But appraisals are the gold standard. And so if CMHC is not prepared to accept your appraiser and your appraisal, then I know that they have a list of appraisers that are approved, right? CMHC would approve certain, they have a list. I mean, and if Mike Simon and Rebecca Simon are not on that list, you can't use them. But at least, look, I'm not, I don't do this every day. I mean, financing is complicated. And I do have mortgage brokers that work for me or work with me, and they're far more experienced than I am in financing. I admit that. But to my way of thinking, my experience, CMHC has a list of appraisers. They do an appraisal. And if that's the appraised value, I mean, look, clients of mine who are quite elderly now bought a townhouse in the 1970s in Toronto for $65,000 that they sold last year for 2.4 million. What the hell does the cost back in the 1970s have to do with the fair market value today? Nothing. Nothing. So for CMHC to take that position seems to me to be counterproductive, because if they take that position with you and other developers, there'll be no development in Canada, because somebody might have bought that site for $65,000 in the 1970s and it's worth 2.4 million today. But if CMHC says, oh, no, we have to go back and use the cost, then those people who own.
So apparently they would be more.
With respect to CMHC, that is total bullshit and unacceptable. Sorry, I'm pissed off now, and I'll tell you why I'm pissed off, just so you know. I don't know if I ever told you this, but the people who set up CMHC, one of the people who was responsible for setting up the goddamn institution called CMHC is my dad.
Oh, really?
Yeah. In 1942, that's a long time ago, my dad was asked by one of the most important cabinet ministers ever to serve in cabinet in Canada. His name was C.D. Howe. There's an institute in Alberta, I think, named after C.D. Howe. Mr. Howe came to visit my dad, who was a civil servant this was during the Second World War. Came to see my dad in 1942 and said, Jack, my dad's name was Jack, I want you to pull a group together and plan for post-war reconstruction. This was 1942. The war would not be over for another 3 years, and nobody was sure if Germany, Japan, and Italy were going to win that war, or the Allies were going to win the war. It was hanging in the balance. The Allies were America, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, the United Kingdom, and Russia. Russia was an ally, and it was a very important ally. The fact that the Russians and the fight now is ridiculous. I mean, they were very close allies. The Second World War would not have been won, in my opinion, without the Russians. The Russians were fantastic fighters. And, Germany invaded Russia, and they got to the gates of Stalingrad and to Moscow and Leningrad, and the Russians died like flies, but they defended their motherland. Otherwise, I don't think the Nazis would have been defeated. But in 1942, the C.D. Howe came to my dad and pull a group together. And one of the priorities that they had in 1942, which they didn't implement until after the war, but they started planning for it, was to start a company called Central Mortgage and Housing Corporation. Central Mortgage and Housing Corporation. It's now called Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, but it was the precursor was called Central Mortgage and Housing Corporation. And what they did, and this is why it pisses me off to hear you talk this way, not you, but the people who are talking, is Central Mortgage and Housing Corporation arranged for the construction, I don't remember whether it was 350,000 or 450,000 small homes called Strawberry Box homes across Canada. You'll see them all over Canada. You see them in Montreal, you'll see them in Quebec City, you'll see them in Toronto and Ottawa, you'll see them out west so that every serviceman who had served in fighting in Europe or in the Pacific against Japan would come home, and you could buy a house if you were a serviceman for $5,500, a 3-bedroom house.
Wow.
With a 5% deposit. So if you could find $275, you could buy a house. Because my dad and his group under Mr. Howe, minister, decided that every Canadian should have a house. It was part of making good citizens and also encouraging people to have families and all the good stuff that comes with that.
Yeah.
So for CMHC to have a rule today that says we're going to look at what your cost was back in 1972, or for that matter, 2016, or even 2020, total nonsense to me, because all developers, not just you and me, but all developers count on hopefully increasing property values, providing them with additional equity. Otherwise, even the giant developers are having trouble today. I read about an office building, I think in Chicago. It was 220,000 square foot office building, so not huge, but decent size, sold for $4 million. You know, that's like $20 a square foot. Well, today the cost of building that thing is at least $350, if not $650 a square foot. It sold for like $20. So obviously property values can go down as they are right now, but they can also go up. So I don't accept that, with all due respect. All right. And I don't think you should accept that from anybody, because it doesn't make any sense.
But you know what they say, he who plays the tune, you know, something like that, right? At the end of the day, they are the ones that make the decision on whether or not you get the financing. I mean,
I would go and get another mortgage broker if my mortgage broker told me that CMHC was going to look at the historical cost of a property I bought 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 50 years ago, whatever. I would fire that mortgage broker. I'd get another one.
so I mean, to be fair to them, you know, because the broker just told me about one of the files that he was working on, right? So apparently, I think it's kind of like your elderly client, right? Your senior client. This person had also purchased this property for about maybe $2,000, you know, maybe in the 80s or something like that. And today the property was worth 8 million. But CMHC was, you know, saying, oh, well, you know, we understand that like over time, right? But where they have an issue is you bought the property 3 years ago when the market was booming in, you know, a COVID era. And in a downturn market, you're trying to tell us that, you know, the price of the property has doubled based on your square equity, and they're throwing those type of analysis out.
I don't disagree with that, but if an appraisal comes back, like I assume that the Chicago property, the office building was vacant. I mean, if it gave you an office building in Montreal, downtown Montreal, or for free, I would not be doing you a favor, Kabi. If I had a building in Montreal that was, say, 220,000 square feet, and I said, Kabi, I'm going to give this to you for free, and you go, oh, you're so nice, Bruce. But if it's empty, you still have to pay the property taxes. You still have to heat it and air condition it, maintain it. That's very expensive. And you know, and you have no income. So I'd give it to you for a toonie, and you would hate me. So CMHC is right in the sense that if an office building was worth, say a 220,000 square foot office building was worth $40 million 5 years ago before the pandemic, and it's worth, you know, 4 million today, then the appraised value would be 4 million, not 40 million. But it works the other way too. If the appraised value 5 years ago was 4 million, and it wasn't an office building, but it was an industrial building full of great tenants, and the appraised value today was 40 million, then CMHC has to use that 40 million. I'm talking about multi-res, obviously, not industrial, commercial. But that's what I think you're going to find. And I wouldn't call it sweat equity, because it's not sweat equity. What on this property here that we've talked about, I'll just go back to what we did last time. All right, on this property here that we talked about, if you can build up the income on this property, you've already rented the house, right?
Yes.
If you could rent one or two spaces in that, I think it's an old restaurant, right?
Yes, an old restaurant.
And you can do some contractor yards in the backyard and maybe some workshops. And you can get that valued in the next year or two at a certain amount of money because of the income. Then that's what it's worth. I don't care. It's not your sweat equity. It's obviously animation. It's adding value because you have income. And, certainly you can finance. And if CMHC is not willing to finance it based on that income, I think that a private lender would probably do that. And I think you can get some construction financing as well. But, look, I think that what we should do is if we're going, rather than you and me talking about this endlessly, the next time we chat, why don't you ask one of your mortgage brokers to hop on the call for 20 minutes or 30 minutes and we can talk it through?
Okay, I think that's a fantastic idea, because I want to expand that idea, right? Now, if I'm going to continue, I'm going to, in my email to you, I said I want to raise the valuation of this property to about 7 million or 8 million. The plan there is, because of the location, the zoning, I can put like workshops there, right? We talked about this last time. If I can put as many, if I put close to, I don't know, 50 or thereabout, if that's feasible, but basically rent it out and start generating revenue from that property to raise the valuation.
This is one of the workshops I bought fairly recently, right? And it's 160 square feet. It has an overhead door, has a man door. Yeah, here's the man door. It's got lots of windows, which I think is nice. It's exactly 160 square feet.
This is from North Shed?
It's from North Country Sheds. Yeah.
North Country Sheds.
And they've done a wonderful job. Now what we're doing right now is we did spray foam insulation. So you don't put that in the picture here, but we've got it spray foamed and insulated. We're adding electrical and and that's about it. So we bought this from North Country Sheds. It's got a metal roof. I'm just trying to see if I got a picture of the roof. Oh, it comes on a trailer like this, and they lower it off and they just drop it on a gravel pad for you. And you can see these are the pictures of the trailer backing up, and then they just tilt it and drop it. And it's got a metal roof on it. I have some of these sheds that I bought from North Country Sheds and from a few other suppliers. And I've got at least a couple that are 40 years old and are still very, very usable. So they last a long time. This one here cost delivered $12,400 plus HST. And then it cost about $2,000 to spray foam it. Aaron Markle's company did that for us, so they spray foamed it. It cost us about $2,000 to add electricity here. Cost us another $3,000 to put reverse cycle heat pumps. So you've got heat and you've got air conditioning. And a few other things. So our total cost was about $25,000. And you can see this is in the rural area of Ottawa. And we rented that for just over $700 a month plus power, plus HST. So our cap rate on this is somewhere between 18 and 20%. And your location, in my opinion, is even better.
I agree. So, yeah, you know what? Instead of us just going, I'll try and get the, with the mortgage brokers, maybe to hop on our next call, and then we can, see what works, because it makes no sense that, right now, if I want to build, the value of the land is about 5.1, right? But just based on this analysis, if I'm renting at about $700 per, 160 square foot, or let's say 300 square foot, then I'm making significant amount of revenue,
I know, and
property.
like I said, I think your property is worth is a better location. So you might get, I don't know, you might get $800 a month plus power, right?
Yeah,
And they're fantastic little units, and and you don't have to put 20 or 15 of them there. You can start with two, right?
yeah.
I mean, and see how it goes. But between the contractor yards, storage yards, and the workshops, and the one or two tenants in the restaurant space, plus the house. I mean, I really like that Cyrville. I'm sorry, what is the
Yeah,
location?
several.
Yeah, I really like that location. It's fantastic.
Question for you, Bruce. In Bellevue, right? When you started this workshop model, you know, in terms of valuations, or how what's the maximum that any of your students have been able to generate revenue and get their valuations up by based on this workshop model?
Well, so far, we don't have anybody who's put 15 workshops on a property. I have right now on one of my properties, I have, I think I think nine.
9.
Nine, yeah. I haven't got to 15 yet, but I have nine. And believe it or not, this is a rural property. I bought that property for $245,000. And it has nine workshops on it. And it has two tiny homes on it as well. And I got it valued for 1.1 million. So it was pretty good based on income.
Okay. What's the square feet of this property, if I may ask?
So it's a rural property, and it's 4 acres.
4 acres. Okay.
Yeah, but in the rural property, acreage is, 2/3 of it is wetland. So the valuation of the wetland is effectively zero, right? I mean, wetlands are nice, you can look at them, but that's about it. So the building envelope is quite small, and it's one of my most profitable. It probably is the most profitable property I own, and we're going to add, I think, another tiny home there this year because there's a lot of demand, at least from our point of view, for this live-work condition, right?
Right.
Right. So, and people love the tiny homes for whatever reason. They just like them. I mean, especially young people, but even some old people like them too. So we offer tiny homes for rent. I just bought another one. I put it on the site. I paid $35,000 for a secondhand tiny home, and I rented it. I put it on the site. We, rolls onto the site, and we rented it for $1,005 a month.
Is that from not um the not shed guys as well, or no?
No, no, this was a different. Just give me a second here. I'll show you the pictures of it if I can find it. Um, we just literally bought it just before I left for Australia. I'll show you what we bought. And that property that you have, uh, on Cyrville,
Yeah.
does it have residential zoning as well? I think it does.
It's GM, so
Yeah, yeah.
it can be residential or
So I'll show you what we bought. Let's see if I can find it. Oops.
was it 160 square foot as well?
Beg your pardon?
Was it 160 square foot, the tiny home as well?
This was bigger. I don't know exactly how no, it probably is about 160 square feet. I'll show you the pictures.
Mhm.
Hang on. And I bought it from Humboldt Creek Homes. They're in Ottawa. And it's cute. I mean, you can't see it because it's under the snow, but there are wheels here, right?
Okay.
And it's a cute little place. It's got an upstairs. Oh, that's a picture of me and my wife standing next to it. And, you know, and this is the company that we bought it from. I think
Okay.
$35,500 plus HST.
But there's financing for it as well.
Yes. So believe it or not, I have $90,000 worth of financing on this. That is $92,000 of financing. I got a bank in Nova Scotia. They appraised it at 92,000. They gave me 100% loan to value thing. We had some other costs, but we put about $40,000 of cash in our jeans from this thing.
No, I don't understand. You bought it for 35,000.
Yep.
Right.
So okay, I'm going to just stop recording for a minute. Okay.
Yeah, I think we're almost